All right, so this game is a game between Kingzone and Fanatic, taken from MSI. I took it specifically from the group stages, and I kind of want a little bit of surprise here. So what I want you to do is I want you to walk us through what you're thinking if you're Kingzone, what you're thinking if you're Fanatic, what are the win conditions, what are you trying to get at, and what are the calls you would make in each team's shoes. So let's start. Why don't you just break us down, tell us about the game state from each perspective.
Okay. So Kingzone is actually really far ahead right now. It's only 30 minutes into the game and they're already 10k gold up ahead. What Kingzone wants to do is they're playing for Baron. It's 20 seconds left till Baron, so they probably want to get Baron control. They've already established complete control over the top side, so what they basically need to do is they need to push up top wave and then they're going to come group mid to possibly look for a pick. That's basically what Fnatic is also thinking. Fnatic, if they lose this Baron, it's going to be very, very hard for them to win the game because their team comp, it practically has no wave clear. Once they lose this Baron, Kingzone's just going to go into the base and probably take most of the objectives. Okay. So what they want is they want to look for a fight around Baron and they want to look for an explosive engage with Sejuani, Yasuo, as well as Trundle and Sion. Trundle, you can combo the pillar with Yasuo ult so that you get an explosive engage. It's similar to what Kingzone also wants. Kingzone wants to look for a pick. They have a lot of good pick options as well as like Thresh, Galio, and Camille. Galio Camille is really broken because if Camille goes in and ults a target and then Galio ults, that target is pretty much dead. So that's basically what Kingzone wants. They want to look for a pick around Baron, and if they get a pick, they'll get Baron and they'll probably win the game.
Perfect. So to sum up, both teams are looking for picks. Yeah. Both teams want the Baron for entirely different reasons.
Yeah.
And who is the members that you're watching out for on each team?
So both teams want to assassinate a target. So I think the most important people to look at are Jhin as well as Kai'Sa, and possibly Yasuo. What's really important to note about Jhin is that he actually has a stopwatch. So if Camille goes on Jhin and he uses stopwatch, he might be able to negate the engage. So if Kingzone actually doesn't know that and they end up engaging on Jhin and they don't get the engage off and Jhin flashes out, that might potentially be really bad.
let's stop there. You said if Kingzone doesn't know that, as a player, you have to constantly access your tab screen, right?
Yeah.
And even while accessing, you miss things like this just because there's so much going on, right? Do you feel like this is something you've gotten better at over time, that looking at the tab, digesting that information, communicating it? Do you feel like there's any players that that are really, really good at that?
Well, ideally, you would know everything about like every single opponent, where you know their items, you know the cooldowns of the items, but that's very hard. So you want to look at the very crucial items like stopwatch, where if that's on cooldown or if they don't have it or if they have it, that's really important to a team fight and it can change the way you team fight completely.
Okay, now we've talked about the setup for the game. I'm going to play right here. We've noticed Gorilla just placed a ward and we're going to move to the next important part of the game. There's going to be some map movement and then it's going to culminate in a Baron fight, as you're going to see here. You see Fnatic is going to push out the mid wave and go left towards the Baron. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to...
See, this is really big actually, because Fnatic, they end up getting the mid control first, and Kingzone forfeits the wave. So now Fnatic actually have a better position for this Baron, and that seems really strange.
Despite top being pushed.
Yeah, despite top being pushed, as well as Fnatic is down 10k gold, and they have the better position on Baron. So what Fnatic can do is they can clear all these wards, or even start Baron.
Okay. Cool. So let's play and see what happens.
Kingzone, however, will clinch top 4. That means there will be 3 teams doing battle for the final 2 seats. Fnatic are not done yet.
So you're right. Fnatic does start Baron, right? Okay. Okay, cool. Let's stop.
Here it is, the engage on Jhin.
The engage on Jhin. Perfect. Yeah. Exactly what you said. They did what you predicted. I want you to put yourself in Gorilla's shoes.
So from Gorilla's standpoint, he's a player that he's very aggressive and he also knows how to team fight well. So from his view,
is that like you? Are you?
That's pretty similar to how I would envision myself playing as well.
Okay.
Right now, what he's thinking is that there's no rush on the Baron, so this is going to be a team fight. So he can play slow.
Okay.
He knows that Camille has already engaged onto Jhin, so he's a prime target. If you look at Sejuani though, he actually doesn't know that Sejuani is there because he doesn't have a ward. But if he did have a ward there, like let's say he has a presence of mind to know that, okay, where's Sejuani? And he ends up warding that, him and Kai'Sa can pretty much insta-kill Sejuani and remove her out of the fight. But let's say he doesn't know that and he just walks in. He can potentially throw a hook on Jhin or these two targets. He can try to flash and follow up on Jhin, or he can try to play it slower and look for a tank target. Let's say I didn't know that Jhin had stopwatch. I would go for Jhin. If I know that Jhin has stopwatch, then I would use my hook on these two targets, and my hook will likely be up by the time that Jin's stopwatch ends.
Cool. Let's see what Gorilla actually does. We'll pause and we'll talk about it.
All right, take a look at this. Kuz has already found Reckless. Reckless is jumping backwards. He's gone golden to survive a few seconds longer. Kuz goes down. GA is popped. Reckless.
Okay, I think a lot happened right there.
Yeah, a lot happened there.
Yeah. It's amazing how many things happen so fast in these team fights. So
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what Gorilla did, and do you feel like you would have done it differently after seeing what he did?
So a lot of things happened.
Okay, walk us through them.
So the first thing that happens is Sejuani ends up stopping Thresh and Kai'Sa. That's really important because they stall them and they engage on the other side.
Right.
So Sejuani being able to slow them down is really pivotal.
Okay.
And that the Sejuani pretty much buys time so that they can play this part of the team fight out.
Okay.
Gorilla knows that Yasuo is very low HP, so he quickly finishes him off, and then he's looking to this side of the team fight. Kai'Sa is pretty much going on assassination.
So he sees him with the flay, right?
Yeah.
The game plan.
Yeah, he goes into the flay and he pretty much finishes off Yasuo. The next thing that he's looking for is the people on this side of the team fight. What's really important to know is that the Kai'Sa has actually opted for an assassination on Jhin over here.
Okay.
Which can potentially be really bad.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is Kai'Sa actually ends up dying, which is actually very bad for the team fight.
Okay. Now as Gorilla, what do you want to do? Your AD carry's dead. You just want to keep commit? Like, what's the play?
So you're pretty much really invested into this team fight. What could possibly happen is you would want to fall back. Like, let's say that Galio backs off and they retreat over to this side of the team fight where possibly they can go on Sion, or also it's important to note that they're waiting for the GA target to come back up so that he can kill him.
Right.
So they're looking to finish him off. And Jhin is practically out of the fight because he's 1 HP. So if Galio doesn't have any tools to finish him off, then it's actually better for him to back off to this side of the fight. Because if he ends up chasing him and just trades for a 1-for-1, that is not worth it.
Okay, why don't we play it all the way through, and we'll kind of see what happens, and you can break it down for us.
Okay. So they did end up actually kiting back in the team fight. So they took Gorilla's Lantern and they kited back to the other side, and they neglected the Jhin. What's really important to know is that Jhin still has his ultimate, so he was still able to actually contribute to the fight.
Right.
But it was very good of them to realize that if they didn't have any tools, they should not keep chasing. And then instead, they back off to the other side of the team.
I bet you've seen that mistake many times before from breaking down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. Here, they decide to keep chasing. I think all the way into the base, you'll see BDDs in their own base. So that's the basic breakdown. Well, thank you for that. Do you feel like you would have made kind of the similar play as Gorilla, or you would have been more aggressive? He seemed like he did take it slow, just like you said.
I think I probably would have done something very similar.
Yeah.
He read the situation pretty well, so he was just kiting back, waiting for his cooldowns.
Yeah. How hard is that to do in the heat of the moment, huh?
I think doing that play, like playing it slower, is definitely easier.
Okay.
Whereas if you go for the more aggressive play, that is riskier and sometimes a lot more rewarding. Like, let's say he flashes in and insta-kills Jhin, then Jhin wouldn't have been able to get his ult off, and that potentially could have changed the fight.
The downside?
The downside is that if he makes that really flashy play, and let's say instead Yasuo ends up escaping or outwinning the duel, like maybe he miscalculates it, then it could potentially go really bad.
He made the decision to focus on shutting down Yasuo when waiting for Yasuo to expose himself rather than making the flashy play. Well, thanks for walking us through all that. That was amazing. I think we know a lot more about how supports think in a fight and how you and Gorilla especially would approach such a situation.